Hello, this is Dave at TitleSearch.com. In this video, we're going to talk about property zoning and how it can be searched as part of a title search. And the most important thing when you're looking at zoning is to make sure that the property you're looking at or the subject property matches the proposed use. For example, if you're looking at a property to use for an office, that it has some kind of commercial zoning which matches that use. And it's a residential property, that it can be used for the residential purpose that's being intended. If it's a multifamily or if it's a multi-use rental, that it matches. The first thing is, if you look at the property county records, you may find that the Planning and Zoning Office has the zoning, and that the Assessor's Office shows it as matching the property permit section. If the property permit section shows it as residential and the Assessor's Office shows it as commercial, that discrepancy could be important to take a look at. You may find that the contract of purchase shows it as a residential or commercial, and the actual zoning is different. You can't go by the contract, you have to go by what the county says it is. Under most title insurance policies, if the use is different than what is intended, that may not be a claimable loss under title insurance. There was a recent case called McCulley versus American Land Title, which disclaimed liability for the title insurance company because the zoning didn't match what the contract was supposed to be. Even if the commercial property is zoned that way, you want to make sure that it's zoned for the use that you intend as a commercial user. For example, that it conforms to the requirements for your use. If it's a resident, or if it's a retail property, you have enough parking spaces. If it's an office property, that you have enough capacity for the number of users that are going to be there. Some cities even have minimum square feet that a commercial property can be located. We ran across a property at one point that technically was a commercial property. It had been used as a residential house for a long time, but it was owned commercial. So the buyer wanted to purchase the property and use it for an office, and they come to find out that if you're going to use it as commercial, even if it's zoned that way, you have to have at least 5 parking spaces, a handicap parking space, and a certain number of minimum square feet to be permitted as an office. Well, this property didn't have any of those attributes, so even though it was a commercial property, they couldn't use it for that. So if you're using it for office, for retail, make sure it has the right parking, make sure the square footage is good. Also make sure that you can put signs up if you need to put signs up. If it's a prior use that looks like it has signs and looks like it has that parking, you don't want to necessarily presume that you can use it for the same thing. Sometimes prior uses have a grandfather clause. If it's been used that way for a long time, you can do that. There's a store in a town that we know about in Florida that has a neon sign. Well, the only reason that store is allowed to have a neon sign is because it was grandfathered in before that city passed laws banning neon signs. So just don't go under the assumption that the current use can extend to the next owner. Also, financing is a consideration. If you're looking at a residential property, mortgage for a residential property has to be a conforming mortgage. You can't get a commercial loan on a residential, and vice versa. If you find out that your property is a commercial property, you may not be able to use a residential standard conforming loan. So check the zoning. It may not be apparent on a typical title search, but if you do need to have that information, there's ways to go about collecting it and researching it to make sure it matches your potential use, because the zoning is very difficult to change, and you want to make sure that the way you intend to occupy that property matches what the current zoning is. If you need more information, you can reach us at TitleSearch.com.